The Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. All my teams are playing this evening, everyone. Hi everyone.
Including District Gaming?
I haven't kept up with that.
Oh,
I should
okay.
check. Sorry. Are they?
I don't know.
You let me know.
Don't know.
I don't know. I'll tune in to the old Monumental Network and find out.
You don't have Monumental Network.
I have YouTube TV, so I do see the Monumental Network.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you have the cable version.
I see the cable
not the
version.
streaming version.
So I'm not in the land of buying it yet. Not yet.
Neither am I.
Not yet. And they're going to have a hard time getting me because I didn't even buy Peacock the other day, guys. I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
For me, I don't need Monumental because I'm at a place where the games are on all the Caps games are on. And when the Wizards get a player worth watching, I'll happily sign up for it.
I'm still seeing all of it. I think if they charge $50 for the year, they get a lot of subscribers, actually.
I agree with you there.
Just,
We went off on the model when
my
it first
own
launched.
my own little piece of advice. You probably get a lot of people to sign up for it if it was actually like $5 a month. Okay.
Or if you said buy a 5-game package and you get it for free.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Just don't then in the small print tell me it's the last row in the stadium against the Jazz. Just please. Okay. Just please.
They should do a package. 3 Caps games, 3 Wizards games, and maybe 1 or 2 Mystics games.
Sure.
And then you get it for free.
Get it for free.
Well, not for free, but you get a code.
Again, though, not last row against the Jazz. Please. Just please. All right?
How can you do Tuesday night against the Nets?
That could be one of them.
Wednesday against the Timberwolves?
Yes, they're good. I'd go see them.
Right.
Yes, they're good. We're back in the day where it's like, who are they playing? Oh, yeah, they got a good player on that team. Let's go see that. They used to market themselves that way.
Correct.
That's when Les Boulets became a thing for Tony. He just made fun of them for, you're marketing people to come see the other team's players.
Right, yes.
What does that say about you?
Right.
Come see the other team's players.
I was thinking about, this just brings it up because you were talking about it like that. Yesterday I wore a Bullets starter jacket. And I've been posting my 3 starter jackets that I own over the last couple of days. And so many people were like, God, that's so sweet. And I just remember being like, no one freaked out when they changed the name from Bullets, yet everyone loved it so much. And now I'm like, yeah, it's because it's just like the Wizards are now. No one really
Bullets,
has this passion to be like, this sucks, don't ever do that. It's like, it's the Bullets, whatever. Like,
people were not happy.
But they weren't like...
Not like this.
Right.
It's not this.
That's what I'm saying.
We didn't have Red Wolves forever.
Right.
That didn't happen.
There was not the passion behind it.
Granted, there wasn't the internet to do this. There wasn't Twitter.
Correct. And I guess...
there was an internet. There wasn't the wide open, everybody's on it constantly yelling at each other.
There weren't multiple social
of it.
networks going at the same time.
Had there been, when that came out, Sea Dogs, Wizards...
Does it Sea Dragons, too?
What if they
Dragons?
did, what was the series called that the Commanders did? What was it called? Making of the Brand?
I guess. I don't remember.
What if the Wizards did that?
Oh, my God.
And Ted is in the video, and you see accidentally that the name is going to be
They would have never
Wizards.
done that, though, because they actually pay attention to their digital content and what's going out more than the other team did.
All right, anyway, for the Commanders today, interview day for Raheem Morris and Dan Quinn. Both of those are happening today, I believe, both virtually.
Yep.
Dan Quinn is going to speak to a number of different teams. One is suddenly automatically available, Dan Quinn, because the Cowboys were a surprising loser.
That's right.
Raheem Morris, this was anticipated. They were the wild card and they lost on the road, albeit in a pretty good showing by the Rams.
Right.
And Raheem Morris falls into my category of one of the people who I've heard just from around the league that they almost can't believe he hasn't gotten his second chance yet. I don't believe it'll be here, but I'm glad they're talking to him because I know what his reputation is, and there are a lot of people around the league that feel like this guy's way overdue to get shot number 2.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are still steamrolling towards Ben Johnson, which I'm excited about if that's what ends up happening. Ben Johnson was asked today by the Detroit media about what do you know about Adam Peters? And it's important to know because Nikki Javala tweeted out 3 answers that he gave. And the first one was about head coaching opportunities. And he kind of danced around it, didn't even really say anything about it because he was like, I'm focused on the game, was basically more his take on it, that's the right thing to say. But then asked specifically about Adam Peters, said he's never met him, Or he met him, but like once.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
he doesn't really know him. I think they're trying to push back at this idea that they're like best friends that have been skipping down the hallway for a long time. But he said, I'm very excited to meet him. Right? And then everybody at Commanderland was like, gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
It was very much.
Couldn't help yourself.
I saw it, and people had already beat me to the punch, and I was like, guys, keep it in the DMs. Let's not do this publicly. Like, it was like, don't act like you're that excited, dude.
So I've described the Peters one because that process started way earlier, which was they were always going to get someone to run personnel. Rivera was never going to retain that part of it.
Right.
They were always going to do that. And clearly this is somebody that was circled early in this process to try to be that person.
Yeah, right.
That the idea that it happened really fast and he wouldn't take other interviews, there's a reason for that, right?
Yeah,
like I don't need to accuse anybody of anything to know that like this person was vetted hard by this group. They then brought in his buddy from the Warriors to like seal the deal. Like they got it done. And like that is important. They did get it done. Yeah. And Peters didn't take another interview, which is also very interesting that he did that. And so he wanted to be here. They wanted him. That's probably been going on for a while, and they got it done. The coaching thing, you know, so he was, the way I've described it is, he was a slam dunk unless somehow someone came along once, you know, the window opened to really talk to him and he got wooed to go somewhere else. But he didn't. So they got it done. That was a slam dunk. You know, the only way that one was going to fall through was someone slipped on the court and hit the back rim. And it wasn't, but he was on his way free and clear. He was going to dunk it, right? Yeah. And that happened. The Ben Johnson one also, for me, has felt like if they got Peters, a slam dunk, but it's a contested one, and it's probably more of a layup. But the problem is what we don't know is what length will someone else go to compete for him.
Right.
That's the part we don't know. But these little tidbits of where he just couldn't help himself to say, I'm very excited to talk to him, would lead you, because these coaches say nothing. And that's why I said it's important to hear what he said before that, where he was just like, I'm focused on the game. We're doing the game plan. I'll let all that stuff take care of itself. Don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it. We got to play the Buccaneers this weekend too. Well, what do you know about Adam Peters? And he starts giggling.
Yeah,
you know, like what's that? It's like, you know.
You let the cat out of the bag.
Yes. So I think everybody, if that's what you're hoping the outcome is, that was a pretty good sign you're going to get the outcome you want.
Right. Exactly. And it was more like, yeah, you're paying attention here. You can say you're preparing for the game, but clearly you know what's going on here. And if you say, I can't wait to get to know him, it's kind of like, all right, you are very open to coming here. If that's your, it's a warm reception is what I'm saying.
Warm reception.
It wasn't a shutdown.
I can't pretend I don't like him.
That's right. So I told you, keep it in the DMs, bruh.
Yeah, like if you ask a young child, do you like that girl? Yeah. You know, and then they just turn bright red.
And they go, no.
They just don't answer. They turn bright red or start shaking. It's like you just kind of know, and that's what this was a tell. Yeah. If there was ever a tell, so it's a good tell because it's the direction I want them to go. And, you know, I know what his reputation is. And so I'm excited if that's where this is leading. He's going to do his interview virtually tomorrow. Obviously, the Lions aren't done playing. So, you know, depending on what happens this weekend, nothing can happen particularly quickly with him no matter what. And I am happy that they're opened in the process here. Like, clearly they circled a couple GM candidates, closed in on them fast, had a couple of interviews. Ian Cunningham would have gotten the job if Adam Peters at the end said no, which I don't think they anticipated he would do.
Right.
So he took the job. This is a little more open to me, and I would be more open-minded too, and I think Peters should be too. Talk to all of these people. Like, Raheem Morris might surprise you today.
Yep.
Might.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of people, this Bobby Slowick name is rising up really fast. Like, I got a feeling he's going to get a job. Like, this year, off of what happened with Stroud, I think, and because he's off of that tree and because he's got a good reputation, I think that's happening fast. So I'll be interested to see when they interview him what they think of him as well. But what it also is leading towards, too, remember, Bill Belichick's on his way for a second interview Atlanta. Dan Quinn is talking to them today. Vrabel, we haven't even heard of them asking for an interview with him yet, right? We haven't even heard that. We haven't even heard of them asking for an interview for Harbaugh yet. Mm-hmm. So I think they're telling you by their actions who they want. And the guy that they clearly want giggles when their name is brought up.
That's right. Yes.
So they're in love.
Yep. Correct.
The only problem is this is where I go. Like, it's The Bachelor.
It's a little much. They have a crush on each other.
Yes.
They got a crush
You know,
on
I
each
bet
other.
The Bachelor, if he was being honest, when he looks at the line of girls, he goes, I know I'm going to end up with that one.
Yeah.
But you have to go through the process because
right.
you never know. You might give the rose to somebody else. And that's where Tepper comes in and goes, I've got $8,000 billion. How do you feel about that? And that's where I get a little concerned. Like, I want this Tepper guy to fall in love with someone else because that way I know he won't be the problem. Because if he's out of the way, I don't see any of these other opportunities now that Dallas is off the board and Philadelphia feels like it might be off the board. I'll get into that in a second.
Yep.
We're not sure yet.
Yeah, exactly.
That Washington is the clear cut, we want you. And hopefully Tepper meets somebody else and goes, I'd rather date this person and shower them with my love for 20 minutes. And, you know.
Go there.
Yeah. I didn't mean it that way, but you know what I mean. Like, no. I mean, he's like, I'm going to give you the world, and then I'm going to take it away from you when you start 1-3, which is what is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
On the Tepper thing, too, you have to wonder if Tepper is going to freak out because Belichick looks like, I said this yesterday, that I think Belichick and Blank, like, they...
Looks like it's happening.
Like they like each other. And I told you this because
Gronk gave that one up. Gronk actually went on the air and said, word, he said it in his way, the word on the street is they're hot and heavy for each other.
Yeah.
And the Dallas move today actually reads to me like they knew they weren't going to get him.
That's
so
right.
that means Belichick's in the bag.
Correct.
Exactly. That's how it reads to me.
So what I'm saying, though, is does that freak Tepper out that he does do open checkbook and says whatever you want to come here, and all of a sudden that's an X factor is all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, like now, okay, so he's not going to get Belichick. Belichick's in his division. Does he go hot and heavy for Harbaugh? Because he has to go, does he feel the necessity to go get a proven winner with a big reputation? And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I believe Harbaugh's going back to the NFL. I know that he's doing all this negotiating with Michigan, and he's putting in these poison pill clauses, apparently, in the contract that sound utterly ridiculous that any school should do. He's gone full Trump. He's asking for full immunity. Like, it doesn't matter what he does. You will not be able to fire me, is like what sounds like he's asking the school to agree to, which how could they do that over a 10-year period? Like, you can't. No, you can't do that, right?
You can't contract the contract, like lock it in.
Right, like you can't do that. So I believe will go back to the NFL, and it probably, if the Chargers meet his price, he'll probably go there.
Right.
But again, if Tepper sees Atlanta's really getting Belichick, does he then shift gears and go, I actually don't want the young guy. I want the proven guy because I'm worried that guy is going to kill me every year. And he'd have good reason to think that, honestly. So that's what I'm hoping. I hope he falls in love with someone else. And Vrabel and Harbaugh are available. So if you want proven winner guy, one at a very high level, and the other one who's done it really well regionally there, then why wouldn't you?
Right.
Like that's how I would look at it. And I do think for Harbaugh and Vrabel, probably the answer, and Ben Johnson too, for that matter. You like Bryce Young because he ain't going anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he is.
Right. Yeah. No,
I don't think you walk from the number one overall pick. However, if they change the GM and they change the coach, and that's what they're doing, those people do have the authority to walk in and go, we didn't make this pick.
Right, but they still don't have a first round pick this year, though. So you do have to kind of.
Oh, I think you got to go through a year with them.
Yeah.
But it's going to be, this is, when you draft a guy, then you fire the people, then it puts that person you drafted in unsettled waters. We saw this with Dwayne Haskins, and we're seeing it right now in real time with Justin Fields. Like, we're seeing it. One group hired him. The second group was brought in after, and now they're wondering if they're going to move on from him because it's directive of the team. And so for Justin Fields, how are you ever really going to succeed in a situation like that? How was Haskins ever really going to succeed? And now Bryce Young's got to be worried here. But I do think the first question is, do you like him enough to play the first year with him? Because we don't have a better choice.
Yeah, right.
Unless you want Cousins.
Which I guess.
Unless you want Cousins.
Right. Could be a possibility, I guess.
I think distinct possibility.
Yeah.
He didn't sign with anybody.
We just don't know his health, though. I mean,
no,
he should be fine. But you never know.
He might be looking at Tepper going, he's going to give me $45 million
maybe,
a year.
Yeah, maybe. Could be.
And I'll go play, and I know how hard I play, and I'll play.
Ooh, what if just because you're throwing it out there, what if we do meeting of worlds?
Carolina Kirk.
No. Kirk in Atlanta.
With Belichick?
Yeah.
They're getting a quarterback, too. Belichick's no way walking in there going, I'm sticking with Desmond Ridder. Not happening.
It only goes
not happening.
One of two ways. Yeah. More chains on planes, or everyone hates him.
Oh. What?
Kirk? If he goes to Atlanta.
With Belichick?
Yeah, if he goes to Atlanta.
That's an interesting one, actually. It's a really
He's got
interesting one.
better skill position players than he's ever played. Well, I shouldn't say that because he had Jefferson and Diggs on the same team, didn't he? Didn't he have them? Weren't they on the same team for at least a year?
He on the same team?
Or they drafted Jefferson after. They might have drafted. I can't
maybe.
remember.
I can't
feel
remember.
like they were on for 1 year, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Could be. And then Diggs went crazy and wanted to go.
Right.
That's when we thought he was coming here because was it his brother or his cousin?
Well, he's always coming here. He's
but
always coming home.
They put pictures of him in a Commander's jersey. Yeah. Remember that? And that's when everybody was like, is he coming here?
It's every year with him, man.
Yeah.
His family freaks out every single time.
Meantime, obviously the news of the day is that Dallas made their choice to stick with Mike McCarthy, which is getting, as you might imagine, not the reaction that you would, what's funny about it is they've won 12 games 3 straight years.
By the way, he was traded, and then they were never on the same team. So
they were never on the same team. So they drafted Jefferson after? Okay. So
hell of a cleanup job.
Not bad. Yeah, not bad. They're going to be paying that guy a lot of money, too, in a minute.
Yep.
As for McCarthy, I don't know. After what happened, it felt like to me, and Jerry keeps talking about the clock ticking on him, that he would go get the closer. Right. Well, I'm going to go with, so this happened on Sunday. It's now Thursday.
Yep.
Let's see, Belichick in the interim had an interview with Atlanta. Mm-hmm. There's no chance on earth, right, Jerry didn't call him, right? I mean,
I think he had to. He had to have kicked the tires.
And if Belichick just told him, I'm going somewhere else.
Or said, I'm not interested. I think that's really actually the main thing. Because I think you and I have spoken on it way too much. And I think Belichick probably had a set number of teams that he was saying, I'll take the interview on those guys. Everyone else, no. I bet you it's only 5 or 6 teams that he was
maybe Belichick wants to wear all black because he gets to do that with Atlanta. Maybe that's what he's into. He likes black hoodies. Maybe that's what it is.
I just really like the hip hop scene here.
Yeah, does he?
I can't wait to meet Ludacris.
If those rappers are going to ask him to be in videos, and I wonder if he'll say yes to any of them.
No,
just any of them. It would be a TikTok sensation.
I really like the Migos.
It would be.
I love Stir Fry. That's my favorite song.
Does he like that place, The Varsity? Is he into that place? Oh, worst hot dogs on earth?
What'll you have?
5 of your terrible hot dogs, trash hot dogs.
I would like to frequent Magic City for their wings.
So I can't accuse Dallas of anything, but I'm going with they called Bill.
Yeah, it had to. Yeah.
Bill said no,
right,
for whatever reason. And at that point, Jerry's not dumb. He goes, I have a Super Bowl winning coach who's won 12 games 3 straight years. The players don't hate him.
They were number 1 in offense. or top of the league in offense.
Top of the league in offense. Dak Prescott had more touchdown passes than anybody in the league.
Since he got hurt.
By far.
Yeah.
Not close.
Because this was what
and
we were
Dak
arguing.
is coming back. Right? As we went through yesterday, the last couple of days, his contract is unmovable. He has a no-trade clause. He's got a $60 million cap hit. You cannot cut him because they're over the cap currently. The only move is to restructure and extend, actually.
Right.
So you'd be bringing someone into Coach Prescott for sure. That's happening. So I guess maybe he figured, why would I go with some young, inexperienced guy, even if I think they're good?
Right.
I need the experienced guy to take me over the top. The guy who's available that would be so obvious to be the next head coach isn't coming here. I guess I just need to eat it and stick with this or give it to Dan Quinn. One of the two. And he probably surmised, how does that help Dak?
Right.
So in the end, this decision, if you really think about it, if they weren't going to get Bill Belichick, probably wasn't as hard unless you were going to make a rash decision. And, is it the right thing to do to go overpay Ben Johnson to be the head coach of the Cowboys or go Bobby Slowick or some of these guys that we're talking about for our program? Probably not. How does that really make sense? You throw somebody in a very volatile situation who's never done it before and is expected to win with a team that keeps getting in the playoffs. You have to get a steady hand who's just done this before. Well, there aren't many of those that actually exist. Tomlin's going back to Pittsburgh, so he's not leaving. He's not available. Belichick is. I guess Harbaugh is, if you really like him.
That's a little more of a sticky situation.
I think that one doesn't feel like a fit
to
me because he's got this owner who's very talkative, and here's this other guy who's kind of not. Mm-hmm. And I would think that he wants full authority. McCarthy fits the role of it doesn't bother him that Jerry talks all the time. I have a feeling Harbaugh and Jerry Jones would get into it constantly if they were actually together all about messaging and all that type of stuff. And Jerry's got to be Jerry or else it's no fun. And then the other one's Vrabel. And I don't know if they were interested in him, but do they look at him and go, that's an upgrade from where we are?
Yeah.
And they're probably going, it's a sideways move to just get somebody who's done this before and has done it at a really high level, but actually hasn't won before.
He's also a defensive coach. Like, it's not like he's going to upgrade the offense.
The guy I have, make fun of him all you want, does have a Super Bowl ring. And, oh, by the way, just won the division and has won 12 games 3 straight years, and nobody wants to ever give him credit for it. So I think actually in the end, if you let things cool off for a minute and you think about it from that perspective, what are your options? I'm not really sure why everybody's going crazy on Dallas today. I think they actually came to the one and only conclusion that was really actually in front of them, which was to stick this out with him, because I don't know that there's any real, if you really think about it, who's the better option other than we're just doing something to do something because Sunday sucked, which is what everybody wanted them to do.
Right. He also did the opposite of what Ron did. He actually fired his offensive coordinator and decided, I'm calling the plays now. And in fact,
that couldn't be Ron because he's not an offensive coach. Because Ron did fire his offensive coordinator.
No, but what I'm saying though is he self-preserved himself by going, I don't like this Kellen Moore cat. I gave it a year, don't like it. I'm going to call the plays now. And what I'm saying, though, is he took over the play calling, and they looked better than they ever looked.
Well, he did, right. You're right. It's different because it's not offense, defense. But Ron,
you know what I'm getting at.
Ron brought in Eric to save him.
Correct, exactly.
McCarthy said, they got 2 guys here that he likes. And if I fail, he's going to pick one of them to succeed me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to kick one of them out.
That's right.
And
because he wasn't good, too.
And I will give him credit for this. He's like, I'm betting on myself. I'm going to insert myself more into this.
Yes.
And you cannot argue with the results of the offense.
Exactly right.
And, honestly, too, off of Sunday, if you're really going to be mad at something, it's that vaunted defense that got shredded by that team. And so not that anything should come down to one game, but if you're going to be really honest about it, you're yelling about this, you'd give it to Dan Quinn off of what you just saw?
Right. Well, I mean, that's what people are freaking out about, too, saying, I can't believe he's getting interviews. Well, you don't base it off one game.
You don't.
It sucked, but...
Go look at the last 3 years with that guy.
Right. The other thing, by the way, on Belichick is you don't know what... Like, he's probably prioritizing, and I don't know what Atlanta's offering him, but let's say Atlanta is saying to him, we will give you full autonomy over the roster. Well, that's going to end any conversations with anyone else. Like,
that's true. Also,
if the Cowboys are going, we'd love to have you, but we're going to handle personnel. Look at our track record, and Bill goes, well, Atlanta is offering me the farm. That could also be a factor here.
This goes back to Jerry wants to win real bad, but he likes to have his fun.
But he's good at it. Like,
and his
they're
fun,
good at it, though.
Yeah, they are.
Like, really good at it.
They went out of their way to get this guy, the GM, whatever his title is, off the market.
Yeah.
Remember, we were supposed to interview him. We clearly had our guy in mind. But off of what their personnel looks like, I don't know why others wouldn't want to talk to this guy because of what they've built down. They draft really well.
Yeah.
Like, of course, like they don't trade up and do all these things. They just draft really well. So they pulled that guy off the market. So Bill would have no control over personnel. Now, while he said I'd seed that in New England, I wonder if he's saying that anywhere else. And I don't know what's going to happen in Atlanta with him because it sounds like feel like it's steamrolling to a done deal, right? I mean, it doesn't feel like he's talked to anybody else of any merit. And he's the only logical name, in my opinion, that Dallas could have talked to and said, you know what? We need a closer here. Like, not unlike when Dungy was finally fired by Tampa Bay and they just brought in Gruden. Well, they brought in somebody who had won at a big level. It wasn't fair to Dungy, probably, but like they had to do that. Or they felt like they had to do it, but they had to do it with somebody who'd done it before.
Yes.
Dallas can't hire Bobby Slowick.
Right, exactly.
They can't. Because if that doesn't work or it blows up, then you're starting from scratch.
Again,
So you've got 2 choices here. Belichick, Vrabel if you love him, even though I think that's just a sideways move from McCarthy, frankly.
Right.
Is he a better coach than McCarthy? Maybe. Is he a better game manager? Probably.
Right.
I haven't watched enough of Tennessee. I've watched a lot of Green Bay and Dallas through the years, and McCarthy's got his warts for sure. But, is he that much of a difference maker for you? You think you're going to win with him over McCarthy? I don't know how you come to that conclusion. So, to me, all the people are yelling and screaming, you stupid idiots, and you're going to blow up again. Tell me the alternative that Jerry should have hired to replace him, and I'll keep waiting. Because I think you're going to be hard-pressed to come up with the names that are obvious if it's not Belichick.
You also don't know what he wants to do with said staff. Like when McCarthy came in, he kept Kellen Moore, and I'm going to assume some of the offensive staff in there, right?
Yes.
Who's not to say he's not doing the same thing with the defense? Like maybe he's even said, I like some of these guys, or we have a plan in place to keep Dan Quinn around. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
We just don't know. Jerry has done this, though, where he keeps guys around because he likes them and he pays them, too. Like, maybe he had a conversation with Quinn, and maybe even Quinn and him have had a conversation of, if you don't like one of these coaching jobs, we'll kick you up again this year or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't know what's going on because he has been paramount in saying, it doesn't matter to me. I'll pay you whatever you want, essentially, to stick around if I want to keep you. So.
Yeah, I think in the end, if you really think about it, what Jones did today was the logical thing actually to do. Yeah. As much as we're all making fun of it.
It's an offensive league, and the offense looked great. I mean, that's the end of the story,
yes,
really.
And everybody seems to want to think that there's a better answer out there. But I'll wait for you to tell me what the obvious better answer that was available to them is. Tomlin isn't available. Yeah. Like Belichick is, but clearly isn't talking to them.
That's right.
So much so that a couple days passed, and he's going for a second interview in Atlanta and not taking an interview with them.
Exactly.
So, what, you think Jones didn't call him? Of course he did.
Right.
And he said, respectfully, I'm going somewhere else. And then Jerry goes, okay, what do we do? And they sat and they put a pros and cons list. And I'm sorry, the pros don't outweigh the cons on McCarthy compared to everybody else. So he did actually what I think is the right thing to do. And we all also, and for the rest of us, we like this because we think it will blow up on them.
Right. I will say this, too.
I think it'd be higher likely to blow up on them if they took a chance on somebody, actually.
I agree. I also think you have to look at sometimes you need to take a step back, and as I like to say, you have to zoom out a little bit. Go look at the NFC. It's San Francisco, and who else? That's like a slam dunk Super Bowl competitor against you when you run it back next year.
Right.
It's them. It's the Eagles, but we don't even know what's going on with the Eagles next year because their roster is going to look crazy and wonky and everything else. So, they're probably sitting back going, even if we bring McCarthy back, we're still the number 2 team in the NFC, just on paper, with no other moves happening right now. We're number 2.
Right. So. I mean, there's a lot of coaches like this. Nobody talks about firing John Harbaugh.
Right.
They haven't won a Super Bowl in 10 years.
Yeah, right.
It's been a long time.
Right.
No one's talking about firing the guy in Cincinnati.
Yep.
And they're, blaming the Burrow injury this year, but they did get to that Super Bowl, but they haven't won one.
And they've actually stayed competitive this year without Burrow, too.
We'll see with McDermott.
Right.
I actually feel like if they lose Sunday, that I actually feel like people may think it might be time to just get a new voice in there with that team. Maybe, but they've lost a million times here in the playoffs, and no one's like, get rid of them.
Right.
So I actually think Jerry did the rational thing to do, whether you think it's the right thing or not. I also, like everyone else, hopes they do blow up because it'll be funny.
Of course.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Very much the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, this is a little convoluted, but we're doing Throwback Thursday for 1999. That was the last time that Charlie Casserly was the general manager of the Washington Redskins at the time. And I think we can all agree that since then, until this past week, we have not had somebody who has had that title and has the authority to exert the decision-making that goes along with that title.
Right.
Because before the show, and you were like, it's the last time we had a GM, and I said, well, actually, Martin Mayhew, up until a couple days ago, was entitled the general manager of the Washington Commanders. And a number of people on Twitter like to point out that on their website, they're both listed still on the website as general manager, which is kind of funny, but Martin's future hasn't been determined yet, whether he's going to stay or not with the organization. Clearly, he won't have the same title if he does. And I do think there's a possibility he will, if he wants to. I don't know.
Right.
Because he did work with Adam Peters in San Francisco, came here from San Francisco. So I think that there's a possibility that he will stay. I don't know, but I think it's possible. So we have to be, semantically, we have to be right about this. The team has had general managers since Charlie Casserly. None of them have had the power that's been promised to Adam Peters.
Right.
So for the first time, we have the structure of the organization that was winning in the 80s and 90s back in front of us again.
I was going to say the prototypical, stereotypical, whatever word you want to use, coach GM build again. And I think it's just worth, no X factor of looking over your shoulder of Dan walking off from the yacht and drafting a quarterback. Like,
Correct.
It just seems we're back to normal a little bit here. So first time since then.
Let's see. Dan Quinn, Raheem Morris are interviewing, I believe, both virtually today with the team. Ben Johnson is expected to interview tomorrow. He giddily said he's very excited to speak with Adam Peters in a press conference getting ready for the Lions-Buccaneers playoff game this weekend.
Those two swiped right, apparently.
They did. They are a match. Now, will they fall in love? We don't know. Will they hand him the rose? We don't really know.
One of them send a stupid gift to the other and turn off the other? Who knows?
I got to tell you, if Adam Peters wasn't married, he would be the most eligible bachelor in this town by far.
A lot of people talking about his appearance lately, yes.
Yes.
He's a very good-looking man.
Speaking of very good-looking men, today Adam Schefter is reporting that Cliff Kingsbury is going to interview with the Bears for a vacant offensive coordinator position. You know where he was last year, right?
Cabo?
USC with Caleb Williams.
Oh, okay.
So this is one of three things. Fact-finding mission.
Yep, right.
Tell us about this guy,
right.
which is part of it. 2, Caleb Williams waited to declare to go to the draft, which many people surmise and believe he wanted to know where he was going when he was drafted.
Yeah.
Who's going to pick me?
Right.
So did he say to the Bears, I want him with me? Possibility, right? Possibility. Or they just like him.
Could be.
I'm going with it's one of the other two. And in fact, it's probably a combination of the two. You worked with this kid. Tell us about him.
Yeah.
We're going to learn about him, but you worked with him. Tell us about him. There was some very odd, awkward media stuff with him this year. There have been some things said, through the media by his parents and others. So I think they want to do a full, if we are going to trade Justin Fields and pick you, we want to know who we're getting here. I don't blame him. I mean, his skill set speaks for itself, which is why he's going to be the number one pick. But you want to know that you're getting somebody who's all in, isn't someone who, if they start 2-4, is going to ask to be traded. Like, you want to know who you're getting. You want to know who you're getting here. And Kingsbury, at the other side of it is, and we don't know this, all of a sudden he gets an interview for that OC position. Is that directive by the Williams camp? And that's a possibility. And if that's what's happening, then we now know what's happening. And that's actually, the sooner we figure this out, the better. If the Bears are basically saying as soon as possible, we're taking Caleb Williams, don't bother calling us. Well, Washington's now on the clock. And guess what? They are in pole position to decide what they want to do. Take a quarterback, which I think is the most likely scenario, or you field the crazy offers from the teams because you've got everybody but him on the board.
That's right.
And so that's what opens things up. All along, I felt like the auction block opens in Chicago. Well, what if they signal very quickly that they're not taking anybody's calls? Guess whose phone is going to be ringing off the hook? This team's.
Right.
So we're going to find out.
There's a third factor. I thought you were going to go there. I thought this was an easy one.
That he's attractive man?
No. We already said that. That was established. They could also be saying, that guy Kyler Murray does crazy things, and you worked with him for a couple years, and you designed the offense around him. You want to do that with Fields?
Okay, that's possible.
I think it's I'm with
you.
I
think it's possible.
I think
the
other
link directly to Williams is hard to ignore here.
I agree. No, 100%. But I do think, because
it's all too on the nose this year, guys. It's just all of it's too on the nose. Seattle fired Pete Carroll with Dan Quinn available.
Right.
It's too on the nose.
I agree, but I think there is a factor here because I've thought, honestly, that the Bears are going to act like they're going to draft Caleb Williams and they're going to scare somebody into giving them a haul. Like that's what I think is going to happen.
Well, I mean, they don't even have to. If they say we're sticking with Fields, we're auctioning off the pick, then the line goes out the door. You don't even have to play. You don't even have to do that. You don't even have to play that game. You're just going, we like our guy. We've got the number one pick. We're not using it on a tackle. So
but
give us a ring, guys.
But modern NFL, though, is you stay quiet until someone gets real squirrely.
Yes.
Like that's like, so if they just stay quiet the whole time and then, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of who's got a pick that would want to move up. I don't know. Let's just call it New England. And New England all of a sudden is like, they're not saying anything. We don't know if they're going to take him. And then they freak out and give him 5 first-round picks to get him.
Listen.
I'm just saying.
You want the best Hard Knocks ever? Get me the back access of all of this.
So you want draft Hard Knocks?
In this case?
Would be pretty good. I mean.
If you actually got all the real conversations that were going on with Justin Fields' camp, with the Bears, who they're interviewing for offensive coordinators, Caleb Williams, what he and his family really think about Chicago or where they're going to go in the NFL, how the agents get involved. Now you got Kingsbury. That's Hard Knocks. If they actually opened that door up and then include us because we've got the second overall pick, suddenly we're the ones getting all the phone calls all of a sudden because we're the ones that have a pick that might be in the offing for somebody else. Right. That's a show.
I mean,
that's a show.
Here's what I would actually do.
They'll never do it, but that's the all-access NFL thing that I want. With these quarterbacks available and considering the situation with Washington and Chicago, both in very interesting spots, finding out the truth of what happened in the background in real time would be amazing.
Here's actually what they should do because the NFL screens everything. I would do it, and then I wouldn't air it until like next year to see what worked out.
To see how it worked out.
Yeah, you sit on it for a year.
Sit on it, like the quarterback series.
Yes, correct. And that way though, you get to do what the Rams did. Like the Rams, I don't know, I think I told you about it, but you didn't see it, where the Rams released the draft footage of McVay arguing, this is why I want Puka. I think he can contribute right now. And it was really cool to see that come out because they were right about it. So I think if you're the NFL, you film it all now and you wait to see who's right, and then you don't air
don't air any of
it. Or you don't show the Bears saying they hate Drake May. You just only air the positive stuff. So it makes everyone
I would
good.
never take that quarterback. We take, but the real story here would be amazing to actually see. All right, one other quick thing from the NFL. I touched on this for a second yesterday, but I want to bring it up for a minute here. Todd Bowles, in a press conference yesterday, was asked by a reporter how the Buccaneers were going to acclimate to the terrible weather that's in Detroit and around the country. I mean, it's 15 degrees here or whatever it is today.
Yeah.
The terrible weather that's around the country. How are they going to acclimate to this? To which Todd Bowles had to very calmly say, we're not worried about it because Detroit plays in a dome, which you clearly don't know is the case. And even if you didn't know that, it's odd because their last stadium was also a dome, which means they've been playing in a dome.
30 years or something like that, or 40 years. Yeah.
40 years of it. They've been playing in a dome. So this is bizarre. And, I don't know who the reporter is, so I don't want to judge exactly who it is. My guess a little bit is it's not a sports reporter that was in there. And so a lot of people were surmising, and this is totally my pet peeve of the media in general, that because Tampa Bay's in the playoffs, because it's important now, the stations that don't carry, full-time sports people, they sent somebody because they had to. They're covering this. That person went in and asked an uneducated question that's not that big of a deal, but and he dealt with it and he moved on. But our time with the coaches and the players is limited to certain amounts of time. And so when you have somebody in there asking questions that clearly they don't even know what they're talking about, it doesn't serve anybody's purpose to do it. And for me, if that is the case of what happened, is what I think happened, somebody local who was sent by their station because the Buccaneers are in a playoff game to go ask some questions. Well, they didn't have to ask any questions. That's number one. They didn't have to ask anything. They could have just gone and listened and reported back, here's what was said, cut this. Okay, they could have done that. Or if they did have to ask a question, it should have been probably handpicked, sent to them. And if it was by the producer, then that producer is dumb for telling them to ask about the weather, not knowing that Detroit plays in a dome. This goes back to my all-time pet peeve of local sports. So recently, and this is nothing new, this came out in the media. The highest-rated television programs in this country, 33 of the 35 are football games.
Yep.
By far.
I think it's more than that. It's 98 out of 100.
Nothing's
like
close.
That. Yeah, right.
Nothing's close. The Peacock thing that happened that everybody got really mad about, by the way, it was one of the most streamed things of the year. Right. They got exactly what they wanted, 1 million signups because of this one game. It's a one-off. They did one game. There's no promise of any more coming. It's just everybody loves this thing so much that they'll do anything to watch all of it.
Correct.
Which is incredible, right? Sunday Night Football is the highest rated program every year by the week. It doesn't matter who the opponents are. I just listened to this New York Times podcast about it, which was actually really good to describe the backdrop and how they put their show together. It was really great. It was really great. But they, mentioned 40 million people are watching this. There is nothing that is on television or anywhere that gets an audience like that. And they do it every week regularly. So this is what I will say to the local news departments who keep shunning sports. Explain to me how if your viewership cares this much about this thing, why you don't dedicate people to cover that thing.
Right.
All of these people, the station that airs, I don't know this for sure, but the station that airs Sunday Night Football, the most watched thing in the country and the most watched thing on your network and your station, you don't have anybody that covers the thing that's the subject of it.
Correct. Exactly.
How does that make any sense?
Right. No, totally. And what really actually should happen is, I've said this for a long time, why are people not stealing the ESPN style of it? You're a major corporation, but then you have a writer for every single one. Like
yes.
Kime is the one here. Why are you not, like if you're Sinclair, why do you not have one dedicated reporter to cover the team every day, and then you get to branch that person out to
How about
all
one
of your
dedicated
markets?
Sports reporter in each market?
That's what I'm saying.
It's not that many people.
Right.
Major markets. And then they deliver reports that you can air on your newscasts all over the place.
That's right. Yes.
And you can ask them like, we need you to. We know you're in Detroit, but we need you to do one for the Tampa
That's
station
right.
too.
Yes, exactly.
But at least this person knows what they're talking about.
Correct.
They cover it.
And they do 10-minute hits with every single station or whatever they need to do.
This makes me nuts when they say like, well, nobody's watching it for sports, but all the people are watching is sports.
Right.
So, like, if all of your viewers are watching sports, why would you not cover the sports?
Well, it's like,
that doesn't make any sense. It's never made any sense to me. Why a station in this town wouldn't have somebody covering the Commanders is full-on insanity to me when the highest-rated things that happen on television in this town every week and annually is a Commanders game.
Right, exactly.
Your viewers are telling you they're interested in it. Why don't you cover it?
It was also, you know how this is, like, NBC4 used to be the flag, for when it came to sports, and it was George in the last 10 minutes, or
yes.
Lindsay, or Carol, or Diana, and for that matters. They were the last 10 minutes. That 10 minutes became 5 minutes. Then that 5 minutes became, 2 minutes. And it was like, how are you keeping people to even pay attention to this to your top of the hour
to
keep them over?
Nobody is... Ted's going to have that's a bad example. Any city council meeting.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching that.
Right, exactly.
Nobody's watching that.
Yeah.
But they cover it for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I agree it's also important, but the thing that 30 million people watch, we can't cover that. Why?
Right.
It's the thing your audience has told you en masse they are addicted to.
Right.
Why wouldn't you give them more of it?
Exactly.
It's crazy. All right, I'll be right back. Very much the show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital.
So much to do, so much.
The older the song gets, the more I like it. This is Smash Mouth with All Star. Didn't their lead singer pass away recently?
He did, yeah.
He did, right?
Yep.
He was a pretty young guy, right? He was like maybe in his 50s, something like that?
Yeah, it was, Steve Harwell is his name. Yep.
Passed away. They had obviously two massive hits. This song and I'm a Believer, which was the remake of the Monkey song, ended up in the Shrek movie.
Both of them ended up in
both
Shrek.
of it. Yeah, and I mentioned that because my son Archer's first lead in a child production will be as Shrek in Shrek Jr. And I can't wait.
You got to tell me when that's happening because
You're coming to that one.
I was to say, I think I need
Everybody's
to show up
coming to that one. First, a bunch of fifth graders doing one's going to be Donkey, one's going to be Pinocchio,
you gotta let me know
Lord
on that.
Farquaad.
Put me in for a ticket on that one.
I think it's going to be a hit. If there was I don't typically make people go to children's productions,
sure.
even as proud as we are of them when our kids are in them. But this one could be good, for real good.
No,
Kids
for sure.
doing Shrek. Oh God,
I'm a fan. I was. You probably don't know this about me. I was in the technical crew for my high school. Sherwood does something called Rock and Roll Revival, and it's like a 2.5, 3 hour show with 30 songs all across from 50s, 60s all the way up until now, and it's a huge production. So, no, I have an appreciation for all that stuff.
Archer was pumped. He came home the other day and he's like, I'm going to be painted completely green. And I went, I assumed.
Right.
Yeah, he's
you have to wear a bald cap?
Probably,
right?
Get the crazy little ogre ears, that whole thing.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And he's been working, how full Mike Myers is he going to go is really the question here. Yeah. Donkey! Get off me swamp! So I don't know how far he's going to go with that. And we were debating when they said they were going to do this, what's the best part? Do you want to be Shrek? Do you want to be Donkey? Do you want to be Lord Farquaad's an incredible that's an incredible role to have. So we were debating that for a while, and he was open to all of it. I thought he'd be good as Donkey personally. That's an incredible character.
I mean, they're
both incredible. The whole thing is. Even the people who are playing like Gingerbread Man or Pinocchio, like they're all incredible like characters.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say every single side character in that.
I've been working lines with them. And like Pinocchio says, I'm a wooden boy. He's
like,
crazy.
I'm a real boy.
I'm a real boy. He goes, no, you're wooden. I'm a wooden boy. Crazy.
It's got to be a fun one, at least, when he comes home and does all that.
It is going to be fun. So I watched Maryland last night play Northwestern, and they lost in what was a game that was awesome. It was total back and forth the whole time. Nobody was up by more than like 6 the whole time. Jameer Young was silly.
Baller, yeah.
Oh, my God. He was crazy good last night. They were down 5 with, 2 minutes to go. He hit a 3 to tie the game where he just it was one of those, he's going to take the shot.
Yeah.
Everybody knows
Everyone's
he's going to take the shot. Yeah. Some guy, it was perfect defense. He steps back to the 3-point line. The guy's up in his face. He sidesteps him, okay? And then off balance, chucks up a 3 and hits it, ties the game. I jumped off the couch. I'm like, oh my God. He had 28 points in the second half, 36 for the game. Northwestern, very oddly, scored to take the lead with 20 seconds. They left a lot of time. The game's tied. Normally you run it down, and if you miss, you go to overtime. If you make, you win.
Right.
It set off, a bunch of events because they scored with 20 seconds left, and it gave Maryland a chance. And Jameer brought the ball down and just could not hit the shot. But he was awesome. And I saw a tweet from him today where he was like, stick with us. And I'm like, you got me, man. Because I watched them last night, and he's a killer right now. The rest of them still got some work to do, and I'm not really quite sure why it's so up and down with them because they're an extremely experienced team. Reese is a very good player. Dante Scott's a very good player, and Jameer is trending towards Big Ten Player of the Year if he's going to keep doing things like he did last night. So I'll stick with him, and I hope everything comes around, but that was a very entertaining game against Northwestern's not ranked, but Chris Collins really knows how to coach. They have a very good program now, and they have a point guard by the name of Boo Buie, who's very, very experienced, very good, was breaking.
What's his name?
Boo Buie. Yeah. That's his name. What do you want? That's his name.
Just no Baba in front of that. That's all.
Boo Buie. He's going to be part of
Baba,
the Shrek Jr. cast. No, it was great. The other thing that's happening in college sports today is Florida State is being sued back by the ACC for trying to challenge whatever legalese they're stuck in
to try to get out of
out of it. So the reports I read, I'm not going to read them here because I don't know what they're talking about. It's in a language. You'd have to be a third-year law school student to even understand what they're talking about. So it's hard to understand exactly what everything's happening. But the bottom line is they're trying to get out without paying $1 billion to do it. The ACC's trying to hold them hostage, obviously, because I think they know that if somehow they let them go, Clemson walks, everybody walks, they're done. That it will implode. And so this is it for big-time college sports. If Florida State wins, we will have 2 tables, and that's it.
Yep.
And the Big 12 will eventually collapse because even as they've done a great job maintaining
staying afloat,
staying afloat, if the ACC goes, it all goes, I think, and it'll be the SEC and the Big Ten or whatever they end up calling themselves, Colossus versus
Colossus,
whatever they call themselves by the end of it. But I did read also that this is going to take years to figure out.
So by the time it's over with, they might be able to leave anyway.
It's so deep in the legalese that it's impossible to think that there's going to be any kind of emergency relief, and there isn't really here.
Got it.
So it feels like the ACC is stuck with one another for a while, but this is endgame of big-time college sports. If Florida State wins this case, then all the ACC teams that want to leave will have the inroads to do it.
Right,
If they lose this case, they're all stuck unless told they're allowed to leave.
Yeah.
And then we have, whatever it is.
You might have
Marvel Universe will be SEC versus Big Ten, and that's it. And everybody else will be playing for 8th place. That's it.
You might actually, though, have schools like Clemson and Virginia Tech pitching into FSU being like, what else you need over there?
Right.
Because we'll join you. And then all of a sudden, then Wake Forest is like, what are we, chopped liver? And they're like, yes, you are, actually.
Yeah, the Pac-12 fell apart out of bad leadership.
Yep.
The ACC is going to fall apart because they're the most dysfunctional family left.
Right, yes.
Nobody wants to be at Thanksgiving. Nobody.
There's 4 weird uncles at the table, and
All
no
of
one
them.
really wants to talk to them.
They're all into QAnon. Like and there's no talking them out of it. That's right. All right, we'll be right back. Bram, what's your show? ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Let me welcome in one of my partners in the booth on Sundays. Not this past one, unfortunately, because the team went 4-13. The one and only London Fletcher. Hey, London, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I miss you, man. It was our first Sunday without being in that booth for quite a while. Kind of sad.
I got to tell you, like, I don't know how you feel watching the first weekend of the playoffs, but I just miss it. I want to be there, and it's so frustrating when the team isn't there playing in it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. As you look at the games, like just think about the atmosphere of that Lions-Rams game.
Yeah.
How cool would that have been to be able to call a game like that? I know, back in 2020, you called a playoff game in Washington, but that was that environment, that atmosphere, just to be in position to make a run at the Super Bowl. There's nothing like it, and I definitely miss that. I can't wait till we're at that level again. I'm truly looking forward to that.
The craziest part of that 2020 game was it was pandemic and nobody was there. So the one and only playoff game that I have had the chance, fortunate to call, there was nobody in the building. Like we were of like 100 people outside of the teams that were literally in the building that day. It was crazy.
Right. Yeah. That's we need you a real experience.
Yeah. We need to get like not dystopian playoffs. All right. Before I move ahead, let me talk about, because we haven't had really a chance to talk about this publicly very much. And we went through the season. It did not go the way I think any of us thought it would go. At what point did you think this could really go the wrong way?
It was, I want to say during that Bears game, that was just the way they played in that game, after having the performance that they had against the Philadelphia Eagles, playing them tough, but just the utter disappointment and to get blown out on national television at home against a Bears team that hadn't won a game, it was almost a calendar year or something. If memory serves me correct. So when that happened, I was like, wow, that was when it first my antennas first went up initially, and then I would say that Giants game, the first one in New York, it was like, you know what, this is just not going to be a great season for us, and I don't know if we can fight our way back from this kind of start we've had.
The big surprise to me the whole year was that the defense was the worst in the league. Like, you could not have convinced me of that in the summer, that's what was going to happen. Like, they might not be third overall again, but I thought the baseline was they were average to good to potentially really good again. Like, in thinking about what happened this year, what happened to them? Like, why were they so ineffective this year?
Yeah, no, when you say just surprised, totally surprised when you think last year they were, the number 3 ranked defense, total defense, top 10 in a lot of metrics. And, when you look at the investments and the resources, either via the draft or free agency or whatever the case may be, all the resources that had been used towards building up that defense and for them to perform at the level that they performed at, to where, they went from top 5 to bottom 5 in a lot of key categories. And, we know there was a trade of Montez Sweat and Chase Young, but even before that, that defense wasn't playing very well. They didn't seem like they were a connected unit, philosophically, teammate wise. It seemed like a bunch of individuals out there playing. Where just for some reason or another, I don't know what happened between the end of last season and this season, where they just were not on the same page defensively. It didn't seem like they could do anything right, and it wasn't like they changed schemes and was doing a lot of different things. A lot of the coverages were still the same from a year ago. A lot of the same packages were the same from a year ago, but the secondary was just atrocious. Defensive front never got consistent pressure on the quarterback the way you needed to impact games. And I think part of that was maybe you had a couple guys, in contract years, so they're trying to maybe I won't say play as individuals, but just you're trying to prove your worth to, and maybe that played a key part in it.
I thought that was one of the biggest mistakes Ron Rivera made. There were, in my opinion, too many people on expiring contracts. That I don't know. I just don't think you can have a room of people and they're all playing for the same thing. And if things don't go well, it's predictable that they're going to start freelancing or whatever word you want to use for it, because their agents are going to be in their ears and telling them, you've got to, perform well. Don't listen to them if you don't think it's helping you. Like it was a tinderbox was kind of the way I described it. It was too many guys playing for contracts this year.
Yeah. And we know about, heck, in the D line one, all the defensive ends were for the most part, all the veteran D ends were on contract last year, the contract. Then you had Kendall Fuller and also Cam Curl, both in contract years. And I've been in that situation as a player. I played my last year out in St. Louis, played my last year of my contract out in Buffalo, and also played my last year out of my contract in Washington. And each scenario is a little bit different, and as you mature and go through it, you kind of know how to handle it. But that first time I went through it in St. Louis as a rookie, as a fourth year player, you're trying to make sure you perform well. You're trying to not put bad film on the tape, and sometimes there you can't help but think about your own individual aspirations and things that you would like to accomplish. I can remember my final year in Buffalo and that last season, and I played extremely well. And I'm just like, I go into that last game and it was Baltimore Ravens, and ironically, I'm just like thinking, man, I can't believe I'm having to play this game, and I'm worried about getting injured and all those types of things. So you're worried about getting through that last game and getting through that season healthy so you can hit free agency.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you about the other side of the ball. I heard an interview. Ron Rivera just did an interview with John Keim and admitted that he put what he says now too much pressure on Sam Howell and that it should have been handled a little bit differently. Not that he shouldn't have gotten the job, but that maybe the pressure and the expectation should have been different. How are you thinking about that right now?
Well, it's kind of a microcosm of Ron. If you think about it, some of the things he said in the press conferences during his tenure in Washington. He said something, then after time goes by, a couple months or few weeks go by, whatever, even a few days, then he comes back and says, "Well, I should have said something differently. I should have worded it differently." Well, there was no reason to say what he said about Sam initially in the offseason. You had a young guy, rookie who had one start, going to two. He played well in a game against the Cowboys. Now you can say, hey, how much do you put into that? And you brought in a veteran in Jacoby Brissett to be a guy who potentially could be a starter. It seems like by some of the comments that Jacoby has said that he was maybe promised or gave the indication that he would have been able to compete for that starting job. So you go out and you can say, hey, as he mentioned, Sam is going to be the guy moving forward, or he's going to be the first guy, or he's going to get every opportunity to prove to us that he should be the starter. You don't necessarily have to say there's a quarterback competition, but if you word it a little bit differently, and not even just during the preseason, during the season, a lot of hey, we got our guy, we got our franchise quarterback, we're developing a young quarterback, we're developing this quarterback. Throughout the season, that was all the talk.
Yeah.
And wins, losses, and, whether it was used to distract, deflect, or keep us from looking at what was happening on the field, defense or whatever the case may be. When you continue to say those types of things, because you had an opportunity and he had an opportunity to change course or even temper expectations at any point in the time, and he didn't do that.
Yeah, and in this same interview, he points out that the Washington media was difficult to deal with in that they would look for meanings in what he said, and if something didn't go the way it planned or he wanted to change his mind, they would kind of hold him to it. And I'm listening to it going, Yeah, but what? So we're not supposed to hold you accountable to what you say? Like, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What's your point? Like, you're the one who
Yeah.
kept saying he's the franchise quarterback. Like, so they asked you, like, that's your messaging that got you in trouble, really?
Well, still continue to be a lack of accountability on his part. In terms of you control. If I'm doing an interview like you're doing, you're asking me a question right now. How I choose to answer that question is totally up to me.
That's right.
I control the narrative of how I answer this question. And Ron had been a head coach for 13 years or whatever the case may be, or however long, 14 years. So he's been a head coach long enough. And yeah, the media is totally different in Charlotte than it is in DC, but not to the standpoint of, they're going to ask different questions. They're asking you a question and wanting you to give an answer, and you can answer that question any way you want to. You see some of the stuff about, hey, I maybe shouldn't have did the coach-centric deal and all that type of stuff. Like, I mean, you have to take this responsibility, ownership of, hey, it didn't work out. I would have loved to have done some things differently. You can control the answer and the narrative of what you want that messaging to be. He understands that.
All right. After being a year with Eric Bieniemy, obviously the offense didn't go as well. I think it's complicated, though. I don't think the offensive line was very good. As we just discussed, Sam had a lot of pressure put on him, and he was an inexperienced player. And I actually think Sam has a nice future ahead of him, whether it's here or somewhere else. Just what is your sense of how Eric Bieniemy performed for the season here as the assistant head coach?
I think he had some great moments at times. He had some so-so moments, and then he had some moments where, man, this does not look very good. The offense doesn't look very good. There was times where you would see there was a stretch where Sam was throwing for 300 plus yards per game, and getting the ball out quickly, things like that. I would have loved to have seen Eric call more running plays. When you look at this offense, the offensive line, how they're performing early in the season, all the amount of sacks that Sam was taking and hits was taking. Yeah, granted, some of them were his fault, but also the offensive line wasn't very good. Like you didn't look at that offensive line even before the season started and said, "Hey, man, this is an offensive line that you can drop back and throw 40 times a game." You got Brian Robinson Jr. and also Antonio Gibson, and you draft Chris Rodriguez. And you got three good running backs. Why not lean on the run game a lot more? And there was never a real commitment truly to running the football to take some of the pressure off a young quarterback. And those are the things where I was disappointed and surprised that even throughout the course of the year that Eric did make those adjustments and call more running plays and to take some pressure off of Sam, especially when those moments and times where he seemed to be really struggling, and you want to help out a young quarterback, run the football. You want to slow down that pass rush and take some of the steam and heat off the quarterback. Run the football. You see Sam Cosmi talks about, in his exit interview, wanting to run the football a lot more. And I'm sure that's how a lot of the offensive linemen felt. Like, man, we needed to run the ball a lot more.
On the hard coaching part of it, which was I felt very mixed about the whole thing. Like, I knew what his reputation was. We saw it in the spring and the summer. And I didn't think that this team didn't need that, honestly. And at the same time, like, to your point about, like, they didn't run the ball that much. It wasn't very collaborative, I think would probably be the best way to put it. Like, I see the other side of that too. But where did you land on all that stuff where players were complaining about his style of coaching or maybe how hard things were?
I had no problem with that. I was totally fine with him coaching players hard. And even what I sensed is holding them accountable.
Yes.
I had no problem with that. I've been around multiple coaches who've had different ways of going about achieving different things. I love coaches that hold players accountable, hold themselves accountable too. So, that part of it was, I'm sure it was a shock to their system for a lot of the guys who had been, in different places, also been here, during Ron's tenure where they weren't used to that type of coaching. But I looked at it from this standpoint. Here you got a guy who came in a proven winner. He's been a part of Super Bowls, winning teams, multiple Super Bowl winning teams that have gone to multiple AFC championship games, things like that. Why wouldn't you be all on board with what he's trying to accomplish and the way he's trying to go about accomplishing that? So, when I heard that type of stuff, I was kind of like, y'all need to man up and suck it up, really.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because you've played in different places at various degrees of winning, where you won a Super Bowl in one place. You were here for a long time when, things were going on here. You were in Buffalo for a long time. And some of the things that we're talking about here are everybody's got to kind of be on the same page just in general. And the organization needs to be set up in a way for everybody to be on the same page. Ron's talking about, not really jibing with the media, and his messages are kind of off. And whether he kind of admits now he delegated a little too much authority this year, that was a problem. Eric, who I think is a really good coach, in the end, I think he's a really good coach, but it might not have been the right place at the right time for him to come in and be this type of coach here. They just weren't either ready for it. The ground was not steady enough for it to happen. Can you just talk about top to bottom what a winning organization looks like and feels like?
No, that's a great question. And I would say first and foremost, everybody aligned together. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to always agree on everything, but the general manager, the head coach, and your coaches are going to be in line with the vision that's being laid out. And mainly, most of the time, that vision is laid out by the head coach. Hey, this is the type of football I want to play. These are the type of players I want to play with. Style of football I want to play. So that has to be in sync. And how we go about carrying that out, it's about the process daily, where you're going to go through some tough times. When I was in St. Louis and with Coach Vermeil, and we were 4-12 my rookie year, I mean, it was some tough times, tough practices, tough meetings, long meetings, the process of building the winner, getting the right people in place. The year before, I think they had won, 3-13 before I got there, or 6-10. So they hadn't done a lot of winning, but the philosophy, the people in the building, the commitment, and what it takes, the foundation was laid and it was being built on a daily basis. And then once we finally won the Super Bowl, you think that game against the Tennessee Titans, we're going driving, Tennessee's driving with the football. And, we're exhausted, but at no point did we think they were going to win that game because of our preparation and years that we had spent building up to that moment in the whether you were on that team in 97 or 98. So when you get to 99, we built for this moment. We've trained for this moment. We're in total in sync, and the players that we have are truly on board with what it takes to win. And those organizations that win consistently, they have that top to bottom. The ones that aren't like that, and I was on a couple of those teams in D.C. where there was not synergy between front office, coaches, players. When you don't have that type of synergy, from a messaging standpoint, from a philosophy standpoint, and just from a building standpoint, team building standpoint, you're going to have inconsistency, and you're going to have more than likely have a lot of losing seasons. Yeah.
All right, 2 quick ones, and I'll let you go. Do you want them to take a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick?
I think when they do a lot of evaluation of where we're at with number 2, and you're going to look at the 3 top guys that you hear about, Williams, Jaden Daniels, and also Drake May. I think they're going to be hard-pressed not to take a guy with that pick, especially if you go to an offensive coordinator as your head coach, a guy, say, hey, let's build this thing. The buzzword is marry him with, his quarterback for the next decade. It'd be hard-pressed to not take one of those guys at that position, especially where you're at. You don't know how often you'll be in a position. You hope you're not in a position like this, drafted number 2 overall again, in the near future, unless maybe you do some type of trade. But you got an opportunity to draft what you think is a franchise quarterback, and I think they're going to take a guy. It's going to be hard-pressed. They'll be hard-pressed not to.
All right, last thing. What did you make of what happened to Dallas and Philadelphia?
The Philly deal did not surprise me at all. Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine right before the game. Watching the game with a friend of mine right before the game started. And I said, man, I'm picking Tampa to win this game. And it was really just Philly looked like a fractured football team the last 6 weeks of the season. They just did not look like the same type of Philly team that we had grown accustomed to seeing a year and a half prior to that. Defensively, they just were atrocious. Didn't you changed coordinators in the middle of the season. They weren't playing with great confidence, couldn't get to the passer, not playing good football, giving up explosive plays. And then from an offense standpoint, Jalen Hurts and those guys, a lot of bickering coming out, about what's going on with A.J. Brown and Hurts and play calling, all those things. So they look like a fractured football team on a downward spiral. I was surprised by that. I was extremely surprised by Dallas. And I would say it was probably more about the way Green Bay plays and how easily they were able to score against that Dallas defense, especially in Dallas. Jordan Love, some of the throws he made and the things that he did. And Matt LaFleur, man, he did a great job of just scheming up plays, explosive plays. So I was extremely surprised that the Cowboys went out at home against the Green Bay Packers.
All right, London, it's a long off season. I can't wait to see you again, get ready for the fall, and I guess we'll see who our next head coach is. So thanks for doing this today, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Appreciate it.